hope you guys are at home and safe with how things are around the world. We're probably gonna get started in the next minute or two. Thanks, Milan. Cool. So, perfect. So, in terms of your comments or anything that you would like to ask me, use the comment box, and I'll definitely get to it at the end of the presentation. Um, I don't want to kind of just run through the presentation. I want to make sure that I get my own experience across as well. There are going to be a lot of examples, and at any specific point you feel like you want some more details, you can always leave a comment. So I guess we're going to get started. Hopefully the rest of the group can join us soon enough. Oh, cool. We have Bonnie from Maryland joined in. Cool. Awesome. Can just a yes to confirm if everybody can see me and hear me? Perfect. All right, sounds good. So a little bit about me, and I'm not going to take too much time. I'm basically just a normal entrepreneur that started this business about 3 years ago. And I think that's one of the things that resonates well with me as well, because, these are really troubling times. And I feel like this is also the perfect opportunity for most people to really get those creative juices flowing and get to working on an idea that they've had stuck in their heads for ages. And when I say that resonates well with me, it's because that's exactly what I did about 3 years ago when I was working for a consulting firm. And I decided at that point in time that I wanted more stability in my life. And 3 years later, we have multiple companies and multiple offices throughout the world, 70 people, and we keep scaling, we keep growing, and that's kind of where I feel like this would be my why for conducting this webinar, so I could share my experience with you guys and give you some hope in these really uncertain times, that it's not that difficult. It just requires a little bit of a nudge. So let's get started. So this is the problem. Although we should have added one more problem here, which would be the fact that we have coronavirus and nobody can get out of the house. But essentially, a lot of businesses fail, and fail miserably, for that matter. Partially because actually for various reasons, and I've had several failures before the few successes that I've had so far, and I keep getting failures in different businesses that I've had set up whenever I ignore the different components that I'm going to share with you. This is generally the root cause for I guess most of the people that are here. So growth hacking is a solution. Obviously, this is what we're all here for, using creative low-cost strategies to help businesses acquire and retain customers. You don't necessarily need hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even $10,000 if you have the right mindset, if you have the right equipment, if you have the right tools to set up your business, whether it's an agency, whether it's an e-commerce store, or whether it's even a manufacturing house. The idea here is for you to utilize different strategies to get your point across, and essentially to scale your business from there. So it's a good example of this point that I'm about to make here. So we're going to follow a 5-step plan to business success that we're going to look at. This should not take you more than a couple of days for you to administer this plan, and hopefully not more than 2 weeks for you to actually set up and start scaling your business. That's exactly the time that it took for me to start up my first business. And we've only been able to perfect that approach more. So our ideation to actual execution part is now like down to maybe a couple of days. Obviously, it varies from business to business, but that's generally the crux of it. So let's look at the first point, identify a personal pain point. Now, this actually goes back to when we started the first business. This was the discussion that we would have time and time again with most of our, between me and my partner, who I'd meet at coffee shops because we didn't have an office. And the pain point that we identified for ourselves, and the reason why I decided to jump into the business, is because I felt like our clients weren't being treated right. So I used to work for an agency before, and I realized that the clients that I would deal with, I would be forced to not deal with them in a proper way. And that basically meant that we weren't able to create any relationships, we weren't able to create any additional business. And I just felt like that was a really bad way of doing business. So that was basically our why. And obviously, having been in this industry for the past 10 years and helping businesses succeed, I felt like I was in a very good position to actually set something up for myself. So yeah, that's basically how it started. And that was, again, as I said, like 3 years ago. And since then, I've been pretty successful. You can check out my NBC interview. You can check out some of the articles that I've written on Forbes, Inc., and other publications. So yeah, it's been a pretty upwards trend for me because of the fact that I've focused really, really minutely on my why. So, basically, so just to kind of go into a little bit about what your why should be and how you should focus on your why. Basically, you need to clearly define your why to help you keep track of what you're trying to do. If you're in it for the, like, if you're in it for the money, then let that be your true north. If you're in it for the fame, then you have to understand that you'd be sacrificing money to achieve that. And more importantly, your why is what keeps you plowing through when times are tough. And you basically just need to revisit your purpose. So if your why is there to help people, then don't get confused by making money. If your why is there to essentially get your personal profile out, which is exactly what I'm doing this for, then you need to come back to it every time. You cannot get bogged down, and that's where you are very, very clear on what you're trying to achieve. And if you believe in it well enough, you will probably be able to instill it in the people that you hire to work for you. And that's basically where your company culture becomes formed. And then you have multiple people apart from yourself that actually start believing in that why. So the second part that has led me to build so far about 5 businesses and in the service industry and 3 products is basically working with an expert in that field. Now, what I mean by an expert, it could be anybody. If you're a techie, let's take an example of my own business. I was really good at marketing and sales, but in terms of the technology component of it, I've had 0 experience. Which is one of the reasons why I partnered with my current CTO, who came on and who built our entire technology infrastructure and helped clients build theirs. So it's extremely crucial for you to have a partner that you can rely upon, that can actually provide the expertise that you need. So if you're the techie part, I would suggest you look for the person who's actually going to look after marketing and sales. And I'm not saying that this is true for every business, but most businesses that you've seen, that don't want a lot of headache generally end up taking on a partner. Steve Jobs had Steve Wozniak. Mark Zuckerberg had several partners at minority stake that helped him build the Facebook. And you've seen, so many examples: Google with Yahoo, with Hotmail, so many different businesses that have scaled up, that have not done it alone. In fact, I do feel like doing it alone is probably not the best long-term strategy. Now, how do you find an expert? That's obviously the question that most people can ask. And that's to before we get into that. As I mentioned, like I've failed several businesses, and I keep failing it. Whenever I deviate from this mindset of having an industry expert that is aligned with that particular business. So we've had several businesses where we created a product, gaming product, and we did not have the right PR partner to push that through, and eventually it ended up being a failure that costed us hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's very crucial for you to have a partner that can actually fulfill that gap that you need, that part of the business that you're not looking into. And generally, it's better for you to have somebody that has a complete opposite of your skill set, and perhaps preferably, and if possible, opposite of your personality as well, because it generally allows you to stay grounded, or be optimistic if you're the one who's grounded. So yeah, it's definitely one of the must. So when we talk about how you can actually find the expert, there are obviously three ways. You can look towards your close network, your colleagues and friends. Ignore the typo here. And essentially that means like the people that you already know. And even though that's a good way of approaching this, it severely limits you, because whoever's in front of you might not be the best person for the job. And obviously there's a relationship baggage, and several other issues that arise by looking at a person that you feel that could be a good fit because you already know them. So whenever you have an idea, obviously look around you and see who'd be a good fit, but have that filter inside your head which tells you whether they're actually a good fit, or you're just making that decision because you know them really well. So understand that you always have to filter through that. Extended network is meetups, networking events, outreach. We've taken on several partners through this approach. Networking events, PR events. I travel a lot, so some of my travel leads me to some of our recent partners through which we've set up new businesses with. Having an extended network is always a good strategy, because you get to meet with really cool people, and they get to make you realize that that idea that you always had in your head, they can play an extremely valuable role in that. The only problem with this second approach is that you don't know what you don't know, right? It's quoted Biggie Smalls there. So the reason that doesn't work out is because when you meet people in the first instance, you don't have the complete bearing of them. You don't exactly know what their personality type is, and you don't really know how committed they are to the objective that you have. So two approaches here that I would really recommend, and would be part of the presentation as well, is essentially make sure that your end goal and their end goal is the same. More than like sometimes I've more than a few times I've seen businesses fail because their exit strategy differs a lot with their partner's exit strategy. So if you're releasing a product, or if you're creating a service with the exit strategy of selling out within like the next 5 years, while your partner wants to continue it for the rest of his life, it's going to be really burdensome for you to actually make a clean exit. So it's always better to have a clear direction. And then the second part, which is equally important, is the commitment from your partner. You need to have that commitment. If they're working a second job or if they have a second or third business, you can never expect the same commitment from them if the business is their only gig. So you want to make sure that you have that out in the open right from the get-go, so it doesn't create problems. So yeah, so again, one of the reasons why we've failed several times is because these two components weren't there for some of the partners that we took on. The ones that were extremely successful, this was the case with the partners that we took on. Third and most easier, and we've used this several times in terms of finding an expert for ourselves, is essentially outsource. Rule of thumb for me is whatever you don't know, whatever you're not good at, and whatever is non-critical, outsource. And we've even as an agency, as an outsourcing agency, we've done that several times for internal projects, internal product services, or extensions, or value propositions that we're trying to incorporate within our business. And it always helps us to basically get rid of that excess baggage that we have to make sure that we don't make any commitments in terms of equity, and we're able to kind of plow through with what we need to accomplish by setting really, really clear-cut expectations with our outsource partner, and then just pay them for it. Obviously, it can be capital intensive initially, but later on, it just pays dividends because you don't have to micromanage the party that you're outsourcing to, and you can basically assess them on whatever KPI you set for them. So we're gonna start getting into the thick of it now. So how do you start the business itself, right? So you've chosen your partner, you know exactly what your why is and exactly why you're doing it. So how do you, and you don't have a huge budget, right? You're a bootstrap company that doesn't have a multi-million-dollar budget, that doesn't have $100,000 budget, that doesn't even have $10,000 to rub together. I started my business with $1,000. So obviously, I think I can call myself a good judge of this question. So how do you make yourself noticed amongst the sea of people that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to market themselves, that are already taking up a huge market share, and it's highly unlikely that you'll be able to succeed here. This is where growth hacking comes in. And this is what Dropbox has done. This is what Hotmail has done. This is what Yahoo has done. This is what Facebook has done. This is what so many other products and services have done to build a good user base, a loyal user base to start with, and scale that exponentially. It's simple. Deliver value. So don't ask for anything in return. Give something for free, and if you'd like, you can leave your particular business idea in the comment box, and I can tell you exactly what your value should be, that you should deliver for free. Initially, when we started the agency as a business, we would have value proposition at every part of the funnel of conversion. So we would drive the customers by giving them something first, and then expecting something in return at every step of the way. So it's obviously, it seems basic, but when you really try to get into it, it becomes difficult to really catch on to. So going into this a little bit more in detail. So you transfer your value for the time that your customer gives you, and then you use that time to define, basically convert that time into value for yourself. And a pro tip here, from my perspective, is you figure out how to scale your value by making it easily attainable and extremely lucrative. So what do I mean by that? Assume that you want to start a design company. The best bet here that you can achieve here would be to deliver value as a logo that you can give them for free, your clients for free. So assuming that you want to start a video company, you can give them a script for free. Assuming you want to start a a product, let's say a social network, you can give them, something else for free, or anything that you want to create. There are options that you can, basically provide for free for time from your customer. Once you have that time from your customers, then you can convert that time into, value for yourself. So it's pretty easy, if you look at it. But the really interesting part and the really important part is where you need to incorporate that at every part of your conversion cycle. So the customer always feels like they're actually getting more in return for what they're paying you or for whatever time they're giving you. What do I mean by easily attainable? Basically, perfect your user experience. Do a competitive analysis, understand how your customers are actually delivering that value for sometimes, for customers paying it. You don't want to make your value proposition or value transaction so difficult that customers are not able to attain it. So you obviously want to make sure user experience while delivering that value is fluid and extremely lucrative. Obviously, find your perfect niche and deliver the perfect message. If you're targeting, again, assuming that you want to set up a design company and you're targeting clients that are enterprise level clients or medium sized businesses, they wouldn't be interested in a free logo. So you need to identify exactly what your target niche is and what would make sense for them as a free value proposition, and then really hone into that. So going more into detail here. Now, how do you transact that time for the value that you can get from your customers? Perfect your CTAs, perfect your emails, perfect your funnels, tier delivery, value delivery to your sales funnels. What do I mean by that? So I mentioned that when we started the business, we started by delivering value to our clients. And the first step of the funnel was essentially just attracting customers. So we would tell them that we would give them a initial audit of their website or initial audit to their technology solution, a free audit. And once we would have that audit take place, we would have a very, very generic audit, sent to them, which would take us about half an hour of our time. And then we tell them that these are the issues that are there that are prevalent on your website. And, we can go deeper, take a deeper dive, or tell you exactly how many hours would it take for us to actually fix those things if you want to go through us. Obviously, you're welcome to go to somebody else. But if you want to take our approach, then just basically sign this non-disclosure agreement that would allow us all the exchanges that we have with you to be basically kept in confidentiality. Now, this doesn't really do anything for us. This doesn't really give us anything, but that initial commitment from the client allows the client to have that mindset that they have something going on with us, and that's what we saw. When we started signing non-disclosure agreements with our agency clients, we saw an uptick of about 50% conversions in our final stage of the funnel. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things where I feel like you need to really look at your value proposition. You need to look at all the parts of the funnel and really delve into it. So the second step of the funnel for us was essentially delivering that quotation to the client. At that point in time, we would have them sign the proposal, which means that they have no obligations in terms of proceeding with us. But again, having them sign a second document just meant in their mindset that they were making a commitment, even if it was not a commitment with reference to time or money. So we would then deliver that proposal to them, which would define the cost and everything else. And then we would, that's when, if they're signing the proposal, that means they're okay with the cost, but they're not really sure about us right now. They're not really sure whether we're the right vendor for them. We're the perfect, company that can work on their product. So that is when we would start working through all the objections handling that, the clients would potentially have, which is what kind of company are we? What do we think? What are our previous clients? And yada, yada, yada. But all of that would happen after the proposal was already sent and the price was agreed. So at that stage, the customer is already partially committed to working with us. And that's the cool thing when you actually deliver value, even if it's something that's as small as a proposal, because it allows your clients to feel obligated in a certain capacity to give you their time, and you can use that time to deliver value for yourself. So the next part of it is essentially, now that you have your value proposition set up and you exactly know what you're going to offer your customer at every stage of the process, how do you build your actual service or your product, right? So for us, it was a hastily thrown together website. I think we copied one of our competitors' website initially. I'm not proud of that, but the competitor was defunct, so it's not like they were using it. But that's the approach. You cannot spend too much time in working together and putting together the service or the product or anything else. It doesn't matter, honestly. At the end of the day, you want to go as lean as possible and really address the concerns of the customers. They don't want to keep looking at your website, or they don't want to keep looking at your product, or they want to use it. They want to have their hands on it. And that's exactly what going lean means. So now that you've delivered your value, you need to get your product out there as soon as possible. So we have like 4 components of going lean, which is on the matrix of essentially lean startup methodology. I'll send you more information after this presentation, so you can look at that as well. It starts with ideate. This is where you actually get to define what it is that you're looking to do, and what it is that you're looking to build. A rule of thumb is, if you have a super cool, awesome idea that is $1 billion idea or a $1 billion industry that you want to tap into, it doesn't matter. What do I mean by that? So I deal with hundreds of clients and hundreds of inquiries almost on a weekly basis, and I come up with a lot of revolutionary ideas, but most of the time they've been done and dusted. So it's highly likely that someone's already done your idea, has already created the product that you want to create, has already built and started delivering the service that you want to offer the customers. So, but that's not something that should dissuade you. The key here is that being the first person to hit the market is not necessary to achieve success. Being the best one is not necessary to achieve success. Being the fastest to connect the dots is. So what you want to do is basically make sure that you are able to get in front of the customer and really, really hone into the need that they have and start solving problems for them. So that's what I mean by connecting the dots, where you have a mixture of your marketing strategy, where you have a mixture of your messaging, where you have a mixture of your branding, your value proposition, and your delivery piece all in place, and you're able to connect all these dots perfectly. You're the one that is going to succeed at faster than your competitor is. So let me go ahead and kind of dwell deeper into the idea part of it. So as I mentioned, you have a really cool idea. What do you do now? So the 3 things that I want you to consider is the 3 W's: what, who, where. So to answer your what, obviously what means, what is your product going to be like? What is it going to have? All those things. So to answer your what, do a competitor gap analysis. So again, take an example of if you guys, so if you have other examples that you'd want me to take apart from a design agency, because that's something that I know really well, leave a comment in the chat and I can start with that. But until then, I'm just gonna basically, stick to my design agency example. Or a marketing agency. I see a few people joining who are marketing leaders. So I can basically kind of just jump to that. So let's say you want to start a marketing agency. Obviously, you have your competitors in a certain market. Let's say your market is California, and you want to target people in the California region. As a marketing agency, so you look at the best competitors that are out there, do a gap analysis on them. what are the values that they're not delivering to their customers. So what I did when we started our first, actually second business. First was pretty easy because I did that quite a lot. When we started our second business, we started calling up our clients and calling up like potential customers, calling up our competitors, and going through their pitches, going through the proposal that they would send their clients, going through their pretending to be customers. And the reason for that was essentially establishing a gap analysis, really understanding exactly what was it that our customers are not doing, or our competitors are not doing for their customers. And when we had that gap, we really, really hunkered down on that, because that's exactly how you can target and you can build your niche in this space, and you can define your what perfectly. So the next part that obviously that I want you guys to consider is your who. Who's your market? Who are you going after? Defining that niche. The best way to look at that is obviously to look at where your competitor is targeting. And the more perfect you make this, obviously this is not a something that would happen right away. It's something that would come into play as time goes by. But whatever your competitor is after, that's and your biggest competitor, right? So you're not looking at, so check out Owler as a tool, which I generally use a lot to really give me an idea of how much my competitors are making. That would tell you revenue stats. That would tell you number of employees. Another good approach is to check out your competitors' LinkedIn to see how many people are there that are working there. So we tell you like who are the biggest competitors that you have, even if it's a product, right? So let's say it's a fintech product that you're trying to pursue. I'm sure there are other fintech products out there that are servicing, somewhat of a similar market to what you want to create for yourself. It could be, exactly what your market is, or it could be outliers that you could potentially service as well. And essentially identify what their need is. What exactly is it that they're looking for from your perspective, and how can you service that particular need the best way? So that would be obviously your who. Now the third part is where, and again, really important. So we're still in that ideation phase. We haven't really set up the company. We're thinking about exactly what it is that we want to create, be it a service or a product. So your where is basically your marketing strategy. Where are your customers at? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Twitter? Are they on TikTok? Are they on YouTube? So to understand that part, you want to look at your competitors' marketing strategy. You want to look at their keywords. You want to look at their messaging. You want to look at their spending. There are several products out there that can
Is this better? Okay, perfect. Really sorry, guys. So I don't know if you missed anything from the rant that I was giving you guys before, but we've pretty much covered where essentially looking at your competitors' marketing strategy, their keywords, their messaging, their spending habits, the mediums that they're targeting, and comparing that with user interest. What are your users searching for? Looking at their search intent, looking at their the volume of their searches, and the platforms that they're searching it on. There's several tools that you can use. I've mentioned SEMrush. I've mentioned SpyFu. I've mentioned Owler. I've mentioned Google Keyword Suggest, Uber Suggest, and several others that I can probably if you guys have any specific questions with reference to tool, I can always address that at the end of the presentation. But that should give you a pretty good idea of how you can compare what your customers are doing and what is your market size. And the gap analysis that you would get from that would define where you should target your marketing and how you should really laser focus that part. So that's where we would essentially go to the next part where where we are basically talking about building the product itself. So now that you have the ideation, now that you know exactly what you're going to build and how you're going to market it, it is really important for you to understand that initially, because this can be a huge game changer when you launch it. The reason that Facebook started with Harvard, obviously, Mark Zuckerberg went there, but the reason that Facebook started with colleges and not with any other like globally the way it reached at the end of the day was because they understood that college students were early adopters. They understood that if they could get college students, others would follow because it has that pull factor. So you need to understand not just your product idea, but also understand what your marketing should be like. Where is your target market, and how are you going to reach out to them? So once you've done that, now we start basically, going into building that MVP. So the rule of thumb here is that you should not wait for perfection. You should iterate it. What do I mean by that? So understand, try to figure out what's your basic form that your product can take, and even if it's something as robust as as a AI product, a machine learning solution, or an IoT product that will take 6 months or 12 months of development or production. Figure out what part of that product can you deliver within 7 days. Now, it could be a simple thing as maybe a teaser video, or a landing page, or a GoFundMe campaign, or a Kickstarter campaign. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what you want to do is get that momentum going and get something out of the door within 7 days. If you can do that, then you have what it takes to be successful and really push that through. So starting with you ship your product in 7 days, and then you start reaching out to customers for feedback. Now, shipping that product does not necessarily means that you have to take it online. It could just be like printing out a flyer with what it is that you're trying to offer your customers. What does your product or service look like? And then you start going after customers for feedback. Use that feedback to iterate the product that you're going to ship out on day 14, and then ship that, and then repeat cycle. So I've written this here just to clarify exactly what I mean. So 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, 30 days, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. These should be the stages of your product completion, and these should be the stages of your market penetration. Ideally, what you want to do is, by the time your full product is launched, similar to what they did with Facebook, they already had hundreds of thousands of users that were signed up and ready for the full deal, right? So iterate your product instead of making a perfect product and launching it, because at the end of the day, you don't know how the market is going to react to it. And we're going to go into that a bit more in detail in the next slide. The second part of actually building a business, when you're talking about building the actual product or service, is measuring your three W's. We talked about this earlier, where we mentioned the what, the who, the where. So when you ship out a product in 7 days, what you're doing essentially is measuring against your what. Is the service that you're going to offer, or is the product value that you're going to offer really solving the problem that you think it's solving? So if it's not solving that, then you need to add certain features that your customer demand. If you feel like it's too much, if you feel like it's too much, it's overkill, then you need to remove certain features or certain values from your service. So it's highly important for you to actually measure against your what. By to So the way, pro tip, that I would like to suggest here: ask the question, what features or value can I add to have more people spend more time with my product or service? So if you ask this question, generally you would get the right answer for you to iterate your product, and you'd be able to make that part of your second release that you're going to have. So in terms of measuring against the different components of the product release, you so defining the measurable goals here is key. So let's say you want to ask yourself, how many people did your target reach out to? So let's say that you set up a website, you would need to identify a certain goal, that these are the people that I need to reach out to, whether through emails, whether to any other channels of networking, meetups, or anything else that you're trying to reach out to your customers with. Define that goal, and then check yourself against that goal to see whether you're able to reach out to them or not. And then essentially identify how many people actually got your message, how many responded to it, how many responded to it favorably, and how many converted. This would give you the answers that you need for your three W's. Let me just go into that a bit in more detail here. So, as I said, the what will allow you to redevelop and really roll out the second release of the product. The who, which is basically who you're targeting, right, will basically allow you to either refocus or redouble your efforts in focusing on the same target market, or allow you to go after new target markets. Ask this question while you're basically going after your clients or your potential clients. After you've had your stats, you've looked at your stats, and you know that these are the people that are actually interested in this. You want to ask yourself, am I serving this market fully? Have you saturated the market with your messaging? If not, then what else can you offer to the same market, through your service or value? How can you scale that market by redefining your product or your service? And that's where you come in. So the where would help you define repurposing your marketing strategy. If you feel like you're not able to effectively target your marketing strategy, you need to tweak your ROI. So it's not necessary for you to be at all platforms at once. Be it Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or anywhere else. But it is necessary for you to be at every platform, sparingly. So when we did our gap analysis initially, and we identified that our competitor is not on Twitter, and that would be your focal point, that would be the point where you're targeting all your marketing strategy. If you are not able to get your ROI, you need to be able to pivot to some other platform that you are getting better results at. And that's where you're basically defining your measurable goals, and you're targeting those measurable goals against your conversions. So the last point here before we step into Q&A is be super focused on your brand. At the end of the day, that's where I feel you should spend the most time on, because at the end of the day, that's what's gonna be something that will keep on increasing its value and keep on increasing the level of service that you can give your customers. And generally that's the only differentiators that you have from getting your product treated as a commodity. If you want to increase your the value of the sales that you're having, if you want to increase the volume of the sales that you're having, work on your brand. The more pristine your brand becomes, the more loyalty, the more following it has, the more you would not have to go after new customers. You would not have to justify your bottom line, and that's where your marketing dollars need to be spent, in building your brand, in building your PR. Your brand is the only long-term asset that you have, and you should guard. That's, I feel like for us, that's been a biggest um, thing that we really focused on, because at the end of the day, it takes only one bad review to ruin the reputation of a brand, while you can have 10 good reviews and they wouldn't count. So here, my pro tip for you is you should look towards scaling your brand equity inorganically. What I mean by that is, organically, you can keep on going after getting more followers, conducting more webinars, or releasing more videos and other things that you have to invest your time in. Inorganically, however, you are able to get exponential returns on your brand. So look at your brand touch points. Your brand touch points are your clients, your employees, the tools or partners that you have that are part of your entire value proposition, and use them to spread your brand out. A good example of that is what HubSpot does. By scaling their brand exponentially, they've created a partner program through which they're able to train marketers to use their marketing tool, and give them badges and give them trainings and give them certifications, which allows them to grow their brand exponentially, because every time somebody links their badge to their LinkedIn or their own personal profile, that's the reach that they're getting for free. So invest time trying to create inorganic means to spread your brand. And exactly what HubSpot did, you exchange your value for influence. Give people something for free for talking about your brand, and you should be pretty good. That's how you would scale it. So that wraps up our presentation for today. I would love to hear any questions that you guys have, and hopefully conclude this. I really hope I wasn't that boring. And I think that interesting voice disappearance at the middle kind of got everybody excited. So thanks, Christina. Cool. So any questions that you guys have, I'll obviously be sending you the slide. I was really high level right now, because I wanted to understand exactly what would be more interesting for you guys, and then I can kind of dwell into that deeper. If you guys want to see more information, if you can comment some of the ideas that you guys have had that you're working on. So with the Veteran app, we are B2B. What digital marketing ideas could we do now before perfection? So I think we're already working on that, aren't we? Having PR releases, having webinars, having as much information out there for free as you can in front of the veteran community, and getting them excited about what you're about to do is crucial, because you will start building up that initial hype for the application. And once the application hits the App Store, it's a lot easier for Apple to pick it up and throw it in the top 10 listing on the App Store, which inorganically gives it a huge marketing boost. So use your partners, use TechRebel to push this out as fast as possible. So Yeah, exactly. It's very difficult for Steve. Okay, so I'm gonna. So I think you guys can see all the comments right now and the participations that are here. So yeah. Any other questions? I hope I've answered that, Christine, and we can always connect in the call later on to discuss that a bit more in detail. If there's any other questions that I can answer, please go ahead. And otherwise, let's get back to our families. Cool. So I think we're done for the day. And I hope you like this. And if I'll obviously, make sure that you have a recording of this submitted in the presentation. And if you guys have any specific questions, feel free to email me. I'm going to go ahead and drop my personal email here in case you guys want to reach out. Okay. And I think at the end of the day, whatever thoughts you have, whatever creative ideas that you have, this is kind of a blessing in disguise because we're not bogged down by the noise that we get from social interaction. So as an introvert, I'm enjoying this, and I really hope you guys will take the time to really push out that idea that you've been waiting on for a while, and get successful. And that's the only thing that I want to do for you guys as well as at this time. And hopefully we'll see each other soon enough. Thank you, and have a great day.